Myself, Dr. A. Topalkatti, Associate Professor in Botany, SSBM Arts, Commerce and Science College, Badami. Today's topic is on inflorescence. Inflorescence is arrangement of flowers on the floral axis and is termed as inflorescence. Basically, the inflorescence, according to the mode of branching, it has been of two types, the racemose inflorescence as well as cymose inflorescence. Racemose inflorescence. In the racemose inflorescence, the main axis continues to grow until the last flower is formed. At the apex, the flowers may be acropetalous in succession, that is, oldest flowers are towards the base and the youngest are towards the apex, or centripetalous succession, that is, the older flowers are towards the periphery and youngest are towards the center. Whereas in case of cymose inflorescence, the main axis soon ends in a flower. There is a basipetalous succession. That means the terminal flower is the oldest flower and laterals are younger ones. Or we may also call it as centrifugal succession. The young flowers are towards the periphery and the older ones towards the center. Coming to the racemose inflorescence, where racemose inflorescence on the basis of their main axis, they have been classified into three types. The first one is the main axis elongated, the second one the main axis shortened, and the third one is the main axis flattened or suppressed. Racemose inflorescence is an inflorescence in which the terminal or a branch does not transform into a flower. That is the reason it is also called as indefinite inflorescence, in which the flowers are arranged acropetally. There are different types of racemose inflorescence. Under the category of first one, that is main axis elongated. The racemose inflorescence is divided into various types based upon the branch length of peduncle and presence or absence of pedicel, that is a small stalk that bears the flowers. We have three types of racemose inflorescence. The first one is the simple raceme, the second one the spike, and third one the spadix. First one, the racemose inflorescence. You can see in the figure the main axis is unbranched, is elongated, and bears pedicellate flowers laterally in acropetalous succession. The older flowers present at the base have a long stalk as compared to the upper young flowers. Example, you do find in case of Brassica campestris, that is mustard, in Raphanus sativus, that is radish, in Clotoreria, that is gentiana. Then you have in Cleome viscosa, antirum. So many examples you have such racemose inflorescence. A second one, a spike inflorescence. Spike in this type of racemose inflorescence, as you can see in the figure, the main axis remains elongated and the lower flowers are older, that is opening earlier than the upper ones as found in raceme. But here the flowers are sessile, that means without the pedicel or the stalk. As example, you have in case of Amaranthus species, then in case of Acheranthus aspera, you have such type of inflorescence. And the third one is what we call it as spadix inflorescence. In case of spadix inflorescence, where the inflorescence axis is with a fleshy or thickened central axis that possess many unisexual sessile flowers in acropetalous succession. Usually, the female flowers are found towards the base and male flowers are found at the apex. So the entire inflorescence is covered by a brightly covered or hard bract called as a spathe. Example, Amorphophallus, Colocasia, the Phoenix, as well as Coccus. Coming to the second category of racemose inflorescence, where the main axis is shortened. Under that one, first we have the corymb. In this type of inflorescence, peduncle is short with the pedicellate flowers. all the flowers appear at the same level. The stalk of the lower flower is longer than younger upper flowers. Example, Moneyhat esculentus, then mint flowers are the example of this. Second, umbel inflorescence. In case of umbel inflorescence, the main axis is shortened. The involucre or bracts are present here. A flower arises from the axil of the bracts. Each flower has pedicel of the same length spread from a common point. It can be simple umbel or compound umbel, which is umbel with branches, also known as umbel or umbels. Umbel inflorescence is characteristic feature of the family Apiaceae or Umbelliferae family. Example, you have in case of Centella asiatica, that is commonly called as Brahmi, or in case of Allium cepa, that is commonly called as onion, and also in case of Primula veris, which is commonly called as cowslip. These are some of the examples of umbel inflorescence. Then under the main axis shortened, that is a third type or compressed, we have the only inflorescence which is called as capitulum or head type of inflorescence. A capitulum is also known as racemose head. It is the most advanced inflorescence. It is characteristic feature of the Asteraceae family, or also called as a composite family. The peduncle is short, flattened, and broad. Flowers are called as florets. The flowers are called as florets. And here the florets are sessile and arranged in a centripetalous manner. That is, outer flowers are older and inner flowers are younger. And individual florets are bracteates. That's the presence of bracts you can see in the diagram. The whole inflorescence is covered with one or more folds of bracts, involucre bracts. Florets may be unisexual, bisexual, or they may be sterile also. Where florets are of two types, one is strapped shaped called as ray florets, and central tubular florets which are called as disc florets. If two types of florets are present in a capitulum, it is known as heterogamous. If all the flowers of a capitulum are same, it is known as homogamous. So example for this capitulum, we have Ilianthes anus, we have Zinna, you have Tacitus erecta, that is marigold, you have Cosmos, you have Mimosa pudica, as well as Acacia. So these are the different types of racemose inflorescence. Coming to the cymose inflorescence, the cymose inflorescence is characterized by the presence of a flower at the apex of the flower axis. The growth of the main axis is limited, and the lateral axis also terminates into flower, and that limits the growth of the axis. Flowers are present in the basipetal succession, that is, older flower is present terminally and the younger one at the base. This type of arrangement is known as a centrifugal, with the older flowers present in the middle and the younger ones at the periphery. So these cymose inflorescence are of different types, like that of simple cyme, the monocaseal cyme, the dicaseal cyme, and the polycaseal cyme. These are four types of cymose inflorescence here. And monocaseal cymes are again further having helicoid as well as a scorpioid cyme. So what is this simple cyme then? This simple cyme is also called as a solitary cyme. It determines the inflorescence consists of a single flower. It may be terminal or axillary. Example, the terminal you do find in case of Trillium grandiflora, and axillary in case of hibiscus. Coming to the second type of inflorescence, what we call it as uniparous or monocaseal cyme. So here the main axis is in a flower, and it produces only one lateral branch at a time, ending in a flower. The lateral and succeeding branches again produce only one branch at a time, like the primary one. And these uniparous or monocaseal cyme are of two types, like that of helicoid as well as scorpioid cyme. So helicoid cyme. In case of helicoid cyme, as you can see the figure where the diagrammatic representation of the helicoid cyme is here, and you can see the actual flower of heliotropium. When the lateral axis develops successively on the same side, forming a sort of helix, the cymose inflorescence is known as helicoid or one-sided cyme. Example in Begonia, Juncus, and Hemicalis and members of the Solanaceae. Whereas a scorpioid cyme, you can see the diagrammatic representation of the scorpioid cyme where you can see the flowers are zigzag in arrangement, and you can see the image of the scorpioid cyme. When the lateral branches develop on alternative side forming a zigzag, the cymose inflorescence is known as a scorpioid or alternative sided cyme. Example in case of Gossypium, like that of cotton, then Drosera, which is called as sundew, and Heliotropium are the examples of scorpioid cyme. Whereas in case of biparous or dicaseal cyme, a terminal flower is subtended by two lateral branches. You can see this is a terminal flower where it is subtended by two lateral at a time. We call it as biparous, okay, which also ends in a flower. This also ends in the flower. The process is repeated. Inflorescence axis is multipodial. We do find such inflorescence in case of dianthus, in case of nyctanthus, in case of jasmine, the clerodendron, as well as bougainvillea. So these are the examples of biparous or dicaseal cyme. Whereas in case of multiparous or polycaseal cyme, you can see the diagram of polycaseal cyme of Calotropis. Okay, more than two lateral branches continue the growth of the inflorescence when the parent axis ends in a flower. So the first parent axis ends with a flower. A polycaseal cyme generally occurs in the primary division. The later division often becomes a dicaseal followed by monocaseal ones. As in case of biparous cyme, the inflorescence axis is multipodial, so we call it as a polycaseal cyme. Multi means many, so poly means many, so multipodial. Example in case of Hamelia patterns, in case of Calotropis, as well as Asclepias are the examples of multiparous or polycaseal cyme. So in addition to these racemose and cymose, we have the special inflorescence also. And these special inflorescences are of three types. The first one is the hypanthodium, and you can see the diagram of this hypanthodium inflorescence. Okay, so hypanthodium has a flask-shaped fleshy receptacle which possesses a narrow canal and a terminal pore at the end. You can see this is a pore, terminal pore at the end. You can see the pore is surrounded by a few scales, while the canal is lined by downwardly pointed hairs. Internally, the receptacle bears male flowers towards the pore and female flower towards the base. You can see here the base. These are the female flowers and these are the male flowers at the center. In between the two groups, the inflorescence is formed by the condensation of three types of flowers bearing axis. So hypanthodium is found in the genus Ficus of the family Moraceae. Example, people, that is Ficus religiosa. In case of banyan, Ficus bengalensis, and in case of fig, that is Ficus carica. These are the examples you find the hypanthodium inflorescence. Coming to the second one, which we call it as verticillaster. In case of verticillaster inflorescence, where two clusters, each having 3 to 9 flowers, develop on a node in the axils of the opposite leaves. You can see here. At each nodal region, where we find at a time it follows the biparous, two flowers are developed here. Each cluster consists of dicaseal cyme with monocaseal branch. Initially, they are dicaseal and followed by monocaseal. This is a diagrammatic representation. The axis of cyme is shortened so that all flowers arise from a single point. They arise from a single point. The two opposite clusters often give the appearance of whole or vertical due to to overcrowding. The verticels are further arranged in a racemose fashion. Such verticillated inflorescence occurs in the family Lamiaceae or Labiatae, and it is a characteristic feature of this family, where stems are generally quadrangular. Example, we find in case of Ocimum sanctum, that is sacred basil, Ocimum basilicum, that is a sweet basil, then the salvia, that is a coleus, and also in coleus also we find such type of verticillaster inflorescence. Coming to the third type of inflorescence, which we called as cyathium, where it occurs in Pinacea, botanically called as Euphorbia pulcherrima and Euphorbia species. The inflorescence looks like a flower. It has a small conical receptacle surrounded by the involucral bract of generally 5 green or colored bracts having nectariferous glands are here. You can see the whole inflorescence looks like a flower, and where it is having an involucral bract, where the involucral bracts are fused so to form what we call as a cyathium. They are fused to form a cyathium. Internally, the inflorescence contains pedicellate, aclamatous, and unisexual flowers of both the types, male and female flowers. In this case, you can find here the male flowers are reduced to stamens. You can see here. These are the stamens. Male flowers are reduced to stamens, and there is a single flower with a long pedicel, and it is exposed outside. And each flower is a tricarpellary. Each flower is a tricarpellary. Okay, the female flower is single and centrally placed. Male flowers are numerous and are arranged centrifugally. Each male flower has a pedicel and a single stamen. The joint between the two represents the thalamus here. It represents the thalamus. Okay? The female flower has similarly a pedicel and a tricarpellary pistil and lobed stigma. This is a female flower. This is a female flower where it is similarly with the tricarpellary ovary and where the stigma are lobed. Okay, so these are the different types of racemose and cymose inflorescence, and also with that of the special cymes we have discussed. Okay, thank you. With this finish off the inflorescence. Hmm?